Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. Yeah, you know what it is. Hard worker, scrappy, unfiltered, and sometimes unhinged football content. Hard to explain, but you know it when you see it. Doing it daily our way. I don't know what you're talking about right now. Redraft and Dynasty Fantasy Football, we got you covered. You know their defense is ranked like 31st in the NFL? NFL draft prospects and rookies? Now you know you in the right place for that.
Absolutely.
All right, then stop saying it. Then we're done. And prop bets with my man JRich.
Count that money, man.
Now wipe the crust out of your eyes, get you a cup of coffee. It's time to wake your ass up with Ray G. You honestly are making absolutely no sense and you sound silly as hell. GMGP, what's going down, good people? It is Monday. What is it? November the 13th, 2023. Y'all decided to wake y'all asses up with Ray G. We in the building. Big Cowboys win. JRich, what you think about those Dallas Cowboys yesterday versus Tommy DeVito? What a beatdown. It was not a big victory.
It was a big game.
Take the dub. We'll take the dub. We'll take the dub. Got a lot of information to dive into from week 10 of the NFL season, as well as some college football nuggets and a couple of historic performances in the college football landscape that should make us very excited for our rookie drafts in 2024. JRich, my friend, how you doing this morning, big dog?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We had I think, surprising weekend of football this weekend, right? We weren't so sold on the slate. People said it could have been the worst slate we had. Obviously, no Kansas City, no Miami, no Philly, no problems as far as I'm concerned for the NFL slate. But I had a good weekend, man. Quiet weekend. Enjoyed the football. Was happy to watch it all weekend long. Some surprising performances and even some good college games too. My man Bo Nix got another win, slowly climbing that Heisman ladder, right?
400 for Bo, baby. Hey,
your boy Jaden Daniels.
Jay,
was it like 250 or 450 all purpose?
The Astro has landed. Josh Dobbs with another monster performance this past Sunday. Yeah. So we will talk some Joshua Dobbs. But thank y'all for being in the building. What's going on, David, from across the pond? I see John in the building. Dynasty Bebop. Ro in there. Ro said you had the boots on too. Now the boots are in the closet, man. Boots are in the closet. Not wearing those in the house.
What are your boots of choice, Eric? If you don't mind me asking?
What'd you say?
What's your boots of choice? You have the Stetson hat on, which you educated me on. What are your boots of choice?
Stetson Skyline 6X on right now. Hopefully, I can get a silver belly color for Christmas. My wife asked,
there we go.
What do I want? I want the silver belly. You got to go with the black traditional, Western wear hat. But I got a couple of pairs of boots, man. I'm a big fan of the culture of the old down south culture. Yeah, man. Big fan. But Jay, we got a lot to get to. What's up, L Wood? 7 Goat Rings in the building. Marlon in the building. Lindsey Mack, Rhonda Commander. Got a lot of takeaways. Jay, fantasy football crazy this week. Got another rookie. We're going to talk about the rookie in a minute, man. I just want to spend all day talking about the rookie, but we got to get into some important news, notes, injury stuff, Jay. Not as big of a news and notes sheet as we normally have. But let's go ahead and give the people what they need so we can get into the show, baby.
All right, so right off the bat, we do have Derek Carr with an injury. He suffered concussion on a high-low hit. Looked pretty brutal. So he's in concussion protocol, but the good news is before you go and trade all and everything you have for Jameis Winston, who did look great, especially for Chris Olave, the Saints are on bye this week. So there is a chance that Derek Carr does return before, obviously, the Saints come and play in Week 12. So just keep that in mind. Before you start trading away for Jameis Winston, because he's going to be the starter, hold up, wait a minute, relax. He might not be. So we still may be looking at Derek Carr by the time the Saints come back after their bye week. Michael Thomas also left the game with the knee sprain, so we'll have to monitor his status. But as I mentioned, Saints on bye. So we'll see what happens with those guys. Deshaun Watson left the Ravens facility in a boot. So we'll see what's going on with his foot. He could be dealing with an ankle sprain or a potential foot injury. Seems minor. Obviously finished the game, played very, very well, especially down the stretch to beat the Ravens. So not overly concerned long term, but we'll have to monitor his status throughout the week. Taylor Heineke suffered a hamstring strain that may keep him out multiple weeks. Now the Falcons are also on bye as well. So we'll see what happens. Arthur Smith said that they're going to evaluate the quarterback position throughout the bye. So it'll depend probably on Heineke's health, but also maybe they do want to go back to Ritter. He did put them in position to potentially win the game. They ultimately lost it because Kyler Murray was better. That happens in football, but we'll see what Arthur Smith decides to do, whether he chooses Taylor Heineke or Desmond Ritter. But we will have to figure out what's going on with Taylor Heineke's hamstring, and I think that will be the determining factor as to who starts in week 12. Alexander Madison also suffered a concussion, so we'll have to see if he does play this week. We know concussions probably not going to play this week, but the following week should be all right. And then Keenan Allen, right, injured his other shoulder. A lot of people have seen the picture of his one shoulder, which is really mangled right now, but he injured his other shoulder, probably a mild AC joint sprain. He did miss several snaps, but did return and, was the #1 fantasy player on the week. So not too concerned about Keenan Allen going forward, but it is something to monitor because it seems like any minute, maybe things will just kind of break down for Allen, but he continues to fight through these injuries and has been great for us in fantasy football.
He's been
Anything you want to
awesome.
touch on, Ray?
He's been awesome. Keenan Allen has been awesome. We'll talk to him once we get to the good wide receivers from the main block, Jay. But really quickly, before we get into the NFL news, there was a lot of stuff happening in the college football world as well, Jay. And we kind of touched on some of the games that we wanted people to pay attention to as we're letting people flow in. But I just wanted to do a quick recap of some of the top risers this past weekend in college football that people sort of need to know about, need to have on their radar, Jay. And the first player that I want to talk about is a player out of South Carolina, Xavier Legette. This past Saturday, he had versus Vanderbilt 9 catches, 120 yards. But the reason why I wanted to highlight Legette is he's a player that a lot of people don't know about quite yet, Jay. But 6'3", 227 pounds. I mean, he looks and is very reminiscent of an A.J. Brown archetype type wide receiver from a size, speed perspective. He's going to test really, really well. And, one of those players that every year there's going to be somebody that comes out of the college football landscape that we're not so sure about. But Xavier Legette is going to be a name that's going to be skyrocketing up the boards for a lot of people, man. A lot of people here in the pre-draft process, Jay. As well as another player that, listen, this running back class, Jay, we continue to talk about the lack of depth in the class. And the more that time goes on, I know he's not a sexy name. I get that thing. But Blake Corum, Jay, another dominant performance. What's so wild about this game, Michigan wins the game. J.J. McCarthy throws 8 passes. Jim Harbaugh suspended. And they don't throw the ball in the second half at all. Not one pass in the second half, Jay. Understand what I just said. They won the game pretty handily over Penn State and did not throw the ball at all. Blake Corum, 145 yards, 2 touchdowns. As we get closer to the draft, Jay, it really feels like for me, while not spectacular, he's not going to run a 4.3. He's not going to have the quick twitch agility of a Tyreek Hill or a Zay Flowers. But Blake Corum is really starting to rise for me as one of the top running backs or the top running back in this class. We'll see how it all plays out. You talked about the aforementioned Bo Nix, Jay. Another 400-yard performance versus USC. Bo Nix was on freaking fire, man. He was 23 for 31, 412 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions as the Oregon Ducks beat down the USC Trojans. And my question to you, Jay, is, how high do you think Bo Nix can go throughout the pre-draft process?
I think surprisingly high. It could be the first round. I still think, we talked about this on Friday. If anybody missed the show, class is very reminiscent and feeling like it could be a heavy dose of second rounders. And the question is how many of those guys can sneak into the first, because we do believe there's a lot of talent in this class. I think that Bo Nix is a guy that could. Some have him in the first, some have him in the second. It doesn't seem like he's going to fall to the third as it stands now. Now, of course, things may change. And, there's people who aren't going to be able to forget those Auburn days, right?
Jimbo,
but
you're wild.
I think
Jimbo's wild for this guy, man. He said, ain't enough fantasy points in this town for the two of us. Get the hell out of here. All right, Jay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're
man.
good.
I didn't mean to
Bo
cut
Nix,
you off.
man. Probably second rounder, could be a first rounder. But he's one of those guys, I think, if he did fall to the third, I wouldn't be shocked.
He's not
that was kind of
falling to the
always
third
where
round.
he
He's
was.
He's not falling to third. He's not falling to third, Jay. This player, I don't know how his stock can go any higher, but every time you watch him, it just continues to wow me how freaking good Marvin Harrison Jr. is, Jay. I don't know, man. You watch him play, 7 for 142, 2 touchdowns, 1 carry, 19 yards, another touchdown on the ground. You watch him, and it's hard to think like you're not watching a reincarnation of Larry Fitzgerald like right now.
Yep.
This dude is going to be so incredibly good once he gets to the next level. I'm not going to go as far to say as he's over Chase or over Jefferson, but man, dude,
You're right
Just when
there.
you think his stock couldn't get any higher. And what I've started to see lately, Jay, a lot of dynasty gamers say he's the one-on-one period. Even over a quarterback. We're back doing this again. Even over the quarterback, they're saying
But
Marv.
do you think it's crazy though?
A little bit.
Because he is a wide receiver.
I think it's a little crazy in super flex, but single quarterback, absolutely not. Not arguing it, Jay.
Would you take him over CeeDee Lamb?
That's the thing. I don't know, man. I don't know if I would do that. I don't know. You want to say yes, I'll take him over Lamb.
I think there's 4 guys you take over him.
AJ Brown, Lamb,
Jefferson, Chase, Lamb. That's it. That's the list.
Maybe Amon-Ra. We'll talk about Amon-Ra in a little bit.
You take him over Amon-Ra.
But the number one player, Jay, he just continues to do it week in, week out. He is incredible. But LSU should be Heisman favorite, Jayden Daniels, Jay. I've been talking about Jayden Daniels all season now. He's finally starting to get some of the respect. This past weekend, 17 for 26, 372 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, no interceptions versus Florida, coming off of a short week where he was in concussion protocol. Then, Jay, he runs the ball 12 times for 234 yards and 2 touchdowns, over 600 yards of total offense. First player in NCAA history with 300 passing yards and over 200 rushing yards in the same game.
Damn.
Jayden Daniels is playing lights out football at 6'4", 6'3", 210 pounds. Listen, I get everybody, Quinn Ewers, J.J. McCarthy. The way that this kid is tracking right now, he's coming for that QB3 spot. He is going to test very well. He has gotten over 1,300 pass attempts in his career. Started out the gate as a true freshman. Experience. He's dominating in the SEC. Should be one of the Heisman front runners. And I can't wait to watch him in his pre-draft process. He's not my QB1 or QB2, but he is definitely a Ray GQ, my guy, for the NFL draft class. So looking at the college performances, Daniels, Corum, Marvin Harrison Jr., Bo Nix, and Xavier Legette, very, very impressive players for me this past weekend.
Yeah, Ray. I mean, Jayden Daniels is actually coming up in the Heisman voting. So is Marv, actually. You got Bo Nix at 1, Penix at 2, but Daniels right behind him, and then Marv right behind those guys. I think people are making the small case for the dark horse in Jalen Milroe. I don't think Milroe will get quite there. He is playing pretty well, but Daniels obviously is playing out of his mind. But the front runner is still Bo Nix, and I'm a little surprised by that. But the top teams don't have a top player, so it makes sense why Nix is right around there. But I was surprised to see Penix kind of give some way to Nix, even though they obviously still won this past weekend. So great weekend of college football, though, but I think a better weekend in the NFL. And Ray, I don't know where you want to start because there was tons of crazy games, late finishes. Thankfully, we were able to go to bed early last night. Didn't have to watch the end of that game. But where do you want to start with this NFL slate?
Well, we've got to talk about the teams that we did not feature because we'll get to the featured teams. So, Jay, you heard the people. You heard the cry of the people, Jay. The people said, hey, let me talk to y'all real quick, man. Y'all did my boy JRich dirty. You said you didn't like his intros. JRich, the people said they didn't like your intros. So you made a new one. You made some new ones. So let's get into the good quarterbacks, the bad quarterbacks, and the ugly quarterbacks from that first main slate of games that we didn't think would be very good.
And now everyone's favorite position, the good, the bad, and the ugly quarterbacks.
I think they're going to be much happier with that rendition of good, bad, and ugly quarterback edition, Jay. So let's get into the good quarterbacks, and you're going to talk about your boy because you always talk bad about him, Geno Smith. Good performance on the week for Geno Smith, Jay, as the Seattle Seahawks and the Washington Commanders. They squared off. Sam Howell was in that. But talk a little bit about Geno Smith, Jay. He played a good game this past Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, Geno, he did what he had to do, and to be fair to him, he did better than I expected. 369 yards, 31 for 47. Surprised to kind of see them really lean on Geno. Now, of course, that was the matchup. That was the way you want to attack this team. Only took 1 sack. There was that pretty bad intentional grounding to end the half, but overall, Geno was very good in this game. And, even if you take away the touchdown from Kenneth Walker, still over 300 yards, only 1 pass touchdown if you take that touchdown away, but you're not going to take it away too much. He still was great. He still went toe-to-toe with Sam Howell. I thought Howell was a little bit better, but Geno got it done for fantasy and was definitely a good quarterback on the week. If you started him, you were happy. Can't be mad about Geno this week. I think the question is can he build off this, or is this a blimp on the radar going forward?
Hopefully he can build off of it. Hopefully he'll build off of it. I'm not going to say that it's locked and loaded because he has kind of been up and down this season. I'm with you. I thought he played a better game, and he got it done for us in fantasy. You get 370 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. You're feeling pretty good. And he also, by byproduct of that, he got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf involved. We'll talk about some of the bad receivers in JSN a little bit later, Jay. But there were some other good quarterbacks on the week from that slate that we didn't discuss. And I mean, how can you not start off the show with, again, Joshua Dobbs, Jay? Another performance where you look at the stats and it doesn't wow you, right? He didn't have like 10 touchdown passes, but 268 passing yards, 1 touchdown, only sacked once, QBR of an 88, had a rushing touchdown on the day, continued to extend drives with his legs. Like, this team is 6-4 right now. This was a team that was supposed to be dead and gone once Kirk Cousins went down, Justin Jefferson, and this hodgepodge mismatch of characters has the Minnesota Vikings competing for a playoff spot. And Justin Jefferson talking about he's excited to get back on the field.
Yeah.
Talk about Mr. Joshua Dobbs. And I don't know what the criteria is for comeback player of the year. I don't think he was technically out to win comeback player of the year. But every week we come on here and say, is this the type of cat that can get a bridge quarterback type job next year? And the way that I'm looking at this is, if he continues this type of play, man, you might have had some found money on your hands for at least the starter for a season next year.
Yeah, so Ray, interesting enough, right, as you're kind of talking through that, I don't know if he's eligible to win, but Josh Dobbs is plus 400, which is 3rd on the DraftKings board right now. To win comeback player on the year, DeMar Hamlin is still the favorite, but only at minus 105, and right behind him, unfortunately, is Tua Tagovailoa, who, MVP candidate, playing phenomenally, so Tua would probably win it over Dobbs. But definitely, I think the media side, the narrative, is absolutely on Dobbs' side, even over a Tua, even potentially over a Hamlin, if Hamlin can't get on the field. So when you talk about Dobbs and what he did, I mean, once again, it's phenomenal what this guy does every single week. His performance from just getting the ball to his playmaker's perspective, being there for 10 days now, maybe, and already has 2 wins, 2-0, has the Vikings with the same record as the Cowboys. They've won they have one more loss than the Cowboys, but they've won 5 straight. They're in the playoff picture already. And that was a situation where we weren't even sure if they could make the playoffs. The NFC at the top is loaded, but I think right behind, San Francisco, Seattle, and Detroit and Philly, there is a couple wildcard spots that easily could be attained. I think that at this point, you see Jefferson coming back. You see the way this offense is already playing. The defense is playing a little better. I think Dobbs is going to lead them into the playoffs, and heaven forbid leads them to a victory in the playoffs. I think everything's up for grabs right now for Josh Dobbs and this Minnesota team. We wrote them off, but guess what, Ray? Josh Dobbs didn't write back.
They didn't write back, baby. Sam Howell, another strong performance from a passing perspective. Did take 3 sacks in this one, no interceptions. He did go over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns as he continues to cement himself as potentially the long-term answer in Washington, Jay. And then we got to go to Dallas because Dallas was not one of the main blocks that we talked about on Friday because we knew, or at least we had a strong feeling that they should handle business versus the Giants, which they did 49-17, Jay. But Dak Prescott, once again, incredible. 404 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, QBR of 97.2. Dak Prescott was awesome. He also ran the ball in 2 for 17 for a rushing touchdown on the day. Dak Prescott on fire right now, Jay. Had a hell of a performance in this matchup versus the Giants, Jay. Now we got to get to the bad quarterbacks. Which QBs just sort of let us down this week? And remember, we're not talking about the games and the teams that were in the main block of our show on Friday. We'll get to the Kyler Murrays here shortly, Jay. But the bad quarterbacks, I mean, and it's tough because both of these players were injured, but you started Derek Carr thinking you were going to have a little something out of there, and you started him and you got nothing. He got hurt, got knocked out, which was unfortunate. Yep. He was 13 for 18, 110 yards prior to the injury, QBR of 22 in the game for him, but he didn't come through for you, but that was a byproduct of him being knocked out due to injury. And then you talked about Taylor Heineke earlier, and we'll get to him once we get to the good games with the Arizona Cardinals and company. But little rough if you started Derek Carr. And Jay, I didn't know if I should put him because people get upset whenever I say he didn't play well. Did Lamar deserve to be in the good category or the bad category or the ugly category? And again, I'm just asking quickly. We'll get into that in a minute. But in your opinion, did Lamar deserve to be in the bad or the ugly category coming off of Week 10?
He should have been in the ugly category, Ray. It's, he was one of the top 4 quarterbacks on the week. He threw 2 picks, and I think what puts him in the ugly category is they blew the game. Like, they should have won that game, I think, pretty handily. And this is kind of what Baltimore does. And I think you have to put it on Lamar Jackson because he's obviously the quarterback of the team. They took their foot off the gas. Things didn't work out. They lost the game. I think he deserves to be in the ugly category. He just didn't get it done. And they had a big lead and they should have won the game, but they didn't.
All right. Well, we've got some other quarterbacks that I think were a little more deserving to go in the ugly column, Jay. I don't know how much we expected out of Danny DeVito, but we got absolutely nothing. I mean, he was not good. He did get a touchdown pass in that game, but I pray that you had better options than to start him. But the 2 uglies on the week, Jay, Gardner Minshew and Mac Jones. What an awful game. What an awful, terrible game Sunday morning in Germany. And I apologize to all the Frankfurt fans that had to come out, spend their hard-earned German money on that because it was a disaster. Mac Jones, awful. Bailey Zappi, awful. Gardner, and the thing is, Mac was 15 for 20, so you're like, okay, not bad. Kept the ball out of harm's way. 5 sacks. The O-line couldn't block. And that interception, as they were driving down I don't know what he was doing. Listen, we can talk about all the weapons he doesn't have till we're red in the face, which could very well be true. But you can't make throws like that, man. I mean, he's falling back. Alligator arms the throw. And it's picked off, and Gesicki was wide open. Just unacceptable throw. Then Zappi comes in. He's holding his hands up after he launches a triple coverage pick across the middle of the field. What are you looking at? The receiver didn't do anything wrong. You threw a bad ball. Bill Belichick is done. He looks like he's over it, Jay. This is taking years off his life.
The hands on the face, right? Like,
get him out of New England. They need a full reboot, Jay. Maybe Mac will revitalize his career elsewhere, but it's a wrap in New England. It is. They said it's like the 4th time he's been yanked for Bailey Zappi since that Chicago Bears game. Like, it's just a wrap. Gardner Minshew, he's terrible too. He's not good either. He was ugly. If you had to start him in a pinch, it was not good. Not good outcome. Those 2 quarterbacks, and if you want to throw Bailey Zappi in there in particular, just awful.
Let's do it.
Awful, Jay. Just ugly quarterback play from those guys, Jay. But let's go to the running back position, have some fun. Good, bad, ugly running backs.
From the most valuable to the least valuable, let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly running backs.
Jay, there were a lot of good running backs on the week, Jay. A lot of good running backs on the week. You have 4 running backs over 100 yards. Devin Singletary, David Montgomery, Jerome Ford, Jalen Warren all crested 100 yards. Good ones, man. I mean, where do you want to go, Jay? I mean, Brian Robinson, good. Fantastic. B-Rob was balling.
Brian Robinson.
B-Rob was balling.
100 receiving yards?
This past week. Yes, he had how many receiving yards did B-Rob have?
I believe it was 116 that he had this week. He was the leading receiver, and Antonio Gibson was second on the team in receiving. Yeah, I believe he had to go all the way down to like 5th to get to Terry McLaurin, which is insane.
Sam Howell just throwing the ball to whomever, whenever, wherever. Jonathan Taylor, Jay, also, he was the only bright spot in that game. He just got fed 23 carries. Zach Moss got 1 carry in the game. Jonathan Taylor also scored us a touchdown versus the New England Patriots. Yeah, I know. Kenneth Walker, Jay. Kenneth Walker was also very good on the week. Hey, man. Hey,
I was nervous, right? I was nervous about old K9 because, I got him on my Scott Fishbowl team, and I was like, my team was balling. I'm like, come on, Kenneth Walker, like do something. And then 65 yards down the sideline, right?
Yeah, 19 carries, 63 yards. So you could stop being panicked about him not being the bell cow or whatever the case may be. And he caught that 1 pass for 64 yards and a touchdown. So Kenneth Walker got it done for us from a fantasy perspective this week, Jay. There were a lot of good running back performances. Rashad White, long touchdown catch in that game. He continues to do it through the air. Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. We asked the question on Friday, which one would you rather start? We struggled on it. I'm like, I'm going Warren. Both of them were good. Both of those guys are continuing to see work. Najee scored. Warren scored. Warren looks more explosive. They're working well in tandem with one another. And unfortunately for Pittsburgh fans, they're covering up the poor play of Kenny Pickett. Austin Eckler was also good. And Jay, Rico Dowdle had a solid game for the Dallas Cowboys. I want to throw some Rico Dowdle love in there because as we get to the bad running backs, Jay, I don't know what to say.
Let's do it.
Listen, Scott
Another
kinda
week.
always says you just ride with him because he's the bell cow. He's getting all the work. JRich, Tony Pollard, once again, this was the matchup where I'm like, come on, TP. This is the one that you got to do it, Jay. And 15 carries for Tony Pollard. He got us 55 yards, 3.7 a touch, and he did nothing in the receiving game. 0 catches, 0 yards. Was stopped at the goal line, I believe, twice.
Yeah, again. He came so close yet again.
Jay?
Did you see the stat that him and Zeke have like the same amount of fantasy points over the last week? I think it was the last 2 weeks. Tony Pollard has like 21 fantasy points and Zeke has 20.6.
Jay,
which is just crazy.
Listen, I was talking to my man Izzy from Dynasty Trade Calculator. He's like, oh, you can't sell him yet. He's going to smash versus the Giants. And I'm like, this was a week ago. I was like, man, I'm not sure. This is, it's just frustrating. It's frustrating. You drafted Tony Pollard to be the stud, and what you're getting right now is
Nothing.
You're getting a bunch of nothing.
Yeah.
You're getting a bunch of opportunity. And finally, they started to give the player that has a little more thump, a little more juice, it looks like, Rico Dowdle, the ball. He's not the long-term answer either. I wouldn't go crazy over either of those players. But on the opposite side of the field, Saquon Barkley, 66 yards and nothing else for Saquon Barkley. This just looks like a team, Jay, that's checked out. This team is 2-8 now. They are in the driver's seat for a new quarterback, which I think they will take. It's going to be
number
tough.
2 right now.
You're going to have the Bears at the top. The Giants and the Patriots should be the two teams.
They play
the 3 teams picking
2
right
weeks
there.
from now.
What'd you say?
2
And
weeks.
they play.
Giants and Patriots, week 12.
Yeah, that could be Drake Maybowl. That could be Drake Maybowl right there for the Patriots and the Giants. I think both of those teams will be going after new quarterbacks next year, Jay. Ugly running backs on the week, Jay. I've only got 2, unless you have some others. Well, I've got 3, actually. I've got 3 ugly running backs on the week. Alexander Madison, 8 for 27, Jay, and 1 catch for 6 yards for Alexander Madison. We'll give him the sad trombone. Look, whether it's Todd Chandler, Cam Akers, they've been trying to tell us they wanted somebody else to run the ball. Madison did nothing in this matchup. It is a wrap for Alexander Madison. I'm good on Madison, Jay. Very much good on Alexander Madison. Derrick Henry, the king. Derrick Henry, Jay. Derrick Henry did do nothing for us this past weekend. And, you're just watching what's happening in Tennessee, and all the hype and enthusiasm and steam for Will Levis is starting to dissipate just a tad bit for old Will Levis out there. 199, 1 interception, sacked 4 times, QBR under 30. Henry, 11 carries, 24 yards, and he didn't do anything in the receiving game. And then 1 week after he was fed 20-plus touches, Aaron Jones relegated into nothingness. 13 carries, 35 yards, 4 catches, 19 yards, no touchdowns. It was ugly for both of those 2 players, Jar.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Etienne, 9 for 35. He was awful in this game. I mean, it wasn't really much of a contest anyways, but he wasn't very good when he did get his
Travis Etienne
opportunities.
doesn't play for the Steelers and the Packers.
I'm talking about the Jags. The Jags versus the Niners, bro. The Jags got stomped.
That's in the main block. We're not there yet, Jay. We're not there yet. Follow the show sheet. We're not in the main block yet.
Oh, but did we talk about? Well, then Breece Hall was the other guy I was going to mention who was bad this week. He should have gotten the end zone. They didn't run the ball very effectively. I mean, to be honest, the Raiders are just a good team now. We have to adjust, I think, our prior expectations for them. But yeah, Travis Etienne was.
Okay,
we're
not on ETN yet for the second time. We get to them when we get to the Niners, JRich. Anybody else that you want to mention from the show block that we did not discuss on Friday?
No, we're good.
Okay. All right. Let's get into wide receivers. Good, bad, ugly.
They can be the biggest stars and they can be the biggest pain in the you-know-what. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly pass catchers.
JRich, where you at? There you go. Good, the bad, the ugly, pass catcher edition. We got CeeDee Lamb, dominant once again for the Dallas Cowboys. But now he had a running mate. Brandon Cooks was even better than CeeDee Lamb. Brandon Cooks went out there and played like what we thought we would get when we signed Brandon Cooks in the offseason. I mean, he gave us 173 yards. I wasn't expecting that. 9 catches, 173 and a touchdown for Cooks. CeeDee Lamb, 11 for 151 and 1 touchdown. 14 targets, 10 targets respectively. Dallas is humming offensively. At least Dak Prescott, you got to do this in these games. These are the type of games you need to beat up on these teams, get some confidence back. Both of those 2 wide receivers balled out, Jay. Who else was good on the week?
We got Michael Pittman was actually good as well, surprisingly, in a game where we didn't expect much and we got virtually nothing on both sides from the quarterbacks. He was still 8 for 84 with 12 targets. Obviously didn't get in the end zone, but came so close. Would have been top 12 wide receiver on the week if he could get into that. But, you know, he was great as well. We also have my man, the guy I talk about every week, Ray, TJ Hawkinson. Did it again. 50 points in Scott Fishbowl. Thank you, TJ Hawkinson, for being the man. Love me some TJ Hawkinson.
15 targets for TJ Hawkinson. 15, man. 11 for 134, 1 touchdown. And it felt like he was banged up all game. Every time he got hit, he was getting up slow. He's walking off to the sideline. Then he's back in catching.
There was a few moments we thought that he was hurt, right? He caught a pass on the sideline. He didn't really get up quickly, went in with a rib injury. So hopefully he's okay. But yeah, he definitely got it done for Josh Dobbs for that offense to carry the load.
And on the other side of the ball, Chris Olave balled out too with a nasty touchdown catch. I don't know if y'all saw it, but a ridiculous touchdown catch for Chris Olave.
Right?
What'd you say?
Thank you, Jameis. Did you see Olave's target share? Do you want to get into that like briefly? Did you see the numbers for Olave? With Derek Carr, 1 target, 5% target share. With Jameis Winston, I think it was 8 targets and 32% target share.
Let's go.
And if you recall back when he was like leading the league in air yards, that was with Jameis Winston.
Mike Evans balled out. Jaden Reed had a good day. And Pop Douglas was also good on the week for us. If you had to start anybody from New England, that's the receiver that you want to start. There's no doubt about it. You got to start Pop Douglas, Jay. The bad receivers on the week, and this isn't that they played super bad or they were all awful. You know, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, we talked about them being a good beneficiary of Geno Smith. JSN, 4 for 53. Like, you'll take it, but not really what you were expecting from JSN. We were hoping for a little bit more. Yep. You look on the Washington side, and you see this is the issue. This is the only thing with Sam Howell is he doesn't have a guy. He throws for 300, 400 yards. He completes almost 30 passes. But then you look at Terry McLaurin, 4 for 33. Didn't really give you anything. You know, we'll get to Jahan Dotson in the ugly section, but he was a big offer on the week. So, you know, when you got a player like Terry McLaurin that did not play well, we kind of talked about, you know, some of these other guys from the main block that didn't do much. And it's just kind of unfortunate to see so much passing volume go around and then it not materialize. Jacoby Myers did not have a good game either. Nothing. It was all Devontae Adams in that game. Jacoby Myers, 2 for 21 in the Sunday night game. He couldn't get much going outside of, you know, with Aiden O'Connell at the quarterback realm. And then we really don't need to talk about Michael Thomas, but he didn't have a good day either. Michael Thomas was arrested, I believe, Saturday or Friday night, throwing bricks at people's cars. Who knows, man?
That was hearsay. Hearsay, right? That was not reported.
Jay. I don't know what to say. I was going to put these receivers in the bad column, but we're going to put them into the ugly, Jay. The Pittsburgh Steelers passing attack, just all of them. Ugly. George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, all of them awful. On the Green Bay side of the ball, Christian Watson still can't get anything going. Awful. Jahan Dotson, 0 catches, 0 yards, 0 yak. Awful, awful, awful performances from those receivers. DeAndre Hopkins, awful. Just ugly.
Yeah, he's the other one.
3 for 27. Nuke didn't do a damn thing. Also inside of that game, Chris Godwin didn't do much of anything either. It was all Mike Evans, Rashad White. Jay, any other standouts before we get to the main block from the games that we didn't really talk about that just not good for you?
No, you hit on them. The other guys are definitely within that main block of the stinkers because there's a couple of them in there that definitely we expected more from. You know, Deontay was obviously a big disappointment. And I think, you know, Josh Downs was another one that I'm not going to get on him too hard because he only got 3 targets, 2 receptions, 40 yards. I mean, that one big catch he made to help seal the game, only 6 fantasy points, but he's been playing pretty well. So expectations were definitely rising, but definitely not an ugly, just a little bit worse than we were hoping for Josh Downs.
Well, let's get into that Atlanta-Arizona game, Jay. And we had talked about that coming in, and you know who we wanted to see in that one, Jay. It was all about one man. It was Kyler Murray. We wanted to see Kyler Murray back in action. We said what we said was he's back. We don't know the last time. You know, he's played in a while. Call of Duty is back. Maybe the Cardinals were showcasing Kyler Murray for a trade. I'm watching that game, Jay, and all I can think about is why on earth would you trade him for a rookie? Like, why on God's green earth would you play the game of move Kyler Murray for a rookie? He looked awesome. He looked awesome, Jay. When he was running around, I was nervous. And he just looked like little old Kyler from the past, just outrunning the defenses, just can't catch him. He's running the ball. He's throwing it. I mean, Are we too low on Kyler Murray in Dynasty, Jay?
Too low is a great question. Let me see where he's ranked in
think
KTC.
He was QB 11 on KTC. QB 11.
QB 11. You are 100% correct. So, I mean, Ray, we could play the game if you want. I don't know if we're too low on him. I think when, we dropped the video over the weekend about talking about Bryce Young, our conversation from Friday, and people are like, what is he supposed to do? This, that, or the other. When I watch Bryce Young and Kyler Murray, you see the difference between the two very clearly. Bryce Young is much smaller, and he is not fast. And that is the big equalizer for Kyler Murray. Regardless of whether he's playing well or not, the equalizer for him to be successful, especially for fantasy football, is his ability to run the ball and keep his team in games. That's exactly how they won, because Kyler Murray is faster than the majority of linebackers and defensive ends and even some defensive backs. And he's able to make plays himself that Bryce Young isn't always able to make. Not to say that to make the comparison too much, but just that was in my head because they're both small and they both struggle to get the ball down the field at times. But love what I saw from Kyler. Thought it was great to see him come back first game, get a big win. It sucks for Arizona because they were in the driver's seat for a tough.
Permafrost said, "Stop it." What did I do? I'm just talking Kyler. He was awesome.
Kyler was great. Kyler was honestly, for what we should have expected, he was phenomenal. 19 for 32, 249, 1 interception, only 2 sacks, which Kyler's usually pretty good at, but we'll take some sacks as well to just avoid getting hit.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, it's really just, is he going to get hit hard? Thankfully, he didn't. He avoids sacks quite well, and we've always said that about Kyler Murray, but he supported some pass catchers as well, which was pretty surprising.
Yeah, Jay. We talked about James Conner. James Conner was also back, and he looked like James Conner. He's just a hammer, right? 16 carries, 73 yards. He didn't catch any passes. They tried to get him involved. We said he'd be a rock-solid RB2, probably a little below that for week 1 outside of some point-per-carry leagues, but encouraged by the usage, right? Encouraged that we know he finished the game healthy. He'll be back next week. You got to feel optimistic, and the Cardinals this was a big win for Arizona, Jay. This was a big win for this Cardinals team. First one back. Again, Kyler, 249, did throw a pick, sacked twice, but ran around for a touchdown, 33 yards. Thought he was very impressive on Sunday, Jay. We also talked about Hollywood Brown and Trey McBride and wanting both of those guys to perform well. And, it didn't happen for Hollywood this week, Jay. It did not happen for Hollywood this week. He only had 4 targets, 1 catch, 28 yards. The timing with him and Kyler seemed a little bit off. Still not worried about it. But Trey McBride did go off. Trey McBride, 8 catches, 131 yards, not on 9 targets. We talked about McBride being fed by Kyler Murray on Friday, and I think his dynasty stock is soaring. This is a player that you and I both really like, Trey McBride, what he brings to the table. I mean, how high should you we were in our Discord on Saturday night. Scott Connor and Shane, they did their Discord AMA, and we were talking about NFL tight ends, and the question came up, Trey McBride or Kyle Pitts, and they thought it was a hot take where I said, give me Trey McBride right now. Give me Trey McBride over Kyle Pitts in Dynasty, and I don't feel like that's a hot take. Give me the cat that's actually being targeted, fed in an offense, and we can realistically predict that he's going to continue to get opportunity. And I don't think that's a hot take at all, Jay. So McBride, he smashed. He did awesome. Hollywood Brown, all the good stuff he was doing, came crashing back down this week. But moving forward with Kyler, I do expect those two to be hooked up quite a bit, but it was good to see Michael Wilson get involved in the action as well. On the other side of the ball, Jay, we were excited to see Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, and it was your boy. It was
Classic
a Ritter game. Somehow
it was a Ritter game.
It became a Ritter game. Talk to us about Bijan Robinson real quick, Jay, who finally got it going this week.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we've been dying for week in and week out. Like, just give Bijan Robinson the ball at any means possible. We're sick of Tyler Algier. We're sick of them losing games. And granted, they lost again, but they did their best. And, when you talk about just from the passing perspective, it was 12 for 21, 70 yards of 1 touchdown. So very minimal on the ground. And it was all because Bijan Robinson, bell cow Bijan, 22 carries, 95 yards, 4.3 a carry, 1 touchdown. Finally on the ground. Also caught 1 pass on 2 targets for 11 yards. I think the problem, Ray, was this enough to satisfy the fantasy managers around the world? Because it doesn't feel like it. He had 95 yards. He scored, but he didn't catch enough passes. He was good for fantasy, but not great. The matchup was about as good as you get in the NFL. There's a few other ones that are slightly better, but the Cardinals are one of the top matchups for running backs. again, we talked about the RB1, and he was great this week. But I don't know if this is going to satisfy the fantasy managers because I believe he was barely in the top 10 on the week
I don't
in
know
terms
if
of
it's
points.
It should make them feel better that moving forward, Bijan had 22 carries to 9, but I guarantee fantasy managers would have liked to seen what would have been better is like 16 carries, 5-6 receptions. You know what I mean? You saw him get the 22 carries, and then he was only targeted twice in the passing game. So is it enough to satisfy him? Probably not, but they probably did enough to where he could go finish the job in the bathroom by himself, and people will be happy. So I think they'll be okay with what he did. They're not quite satisfied, but they did just enough for him.
Yeah.
Drake London and Kyle Pitts, they led the team in receiving yards, and it means absolutely nothing at all. They both had 30 yards receiving on 3 catches. Neither of them did well, but Desmond Ridder is back. Your boy Desmond Ridder is back, Jay.
We'll see,
what can we expect from this game? And when he came back in, what did he do? He ran a touchdown in. Desmond Ridder scores a touchdown somehow, some way, and that's what he's going to do.
I'm just glad he didn't fumble, honestly. I mean, after what happened in Tampa Bay, we're just glad he actually ran it into the end zone, didn't fumble. We don't know who's going to be the quarterback after the bye week. So, again, temper your expectations. But it was bad. Like, they ran the ball a lot, which is fine if you have Bijan. But the pass catchers, once again, just can't do anything if they don't get the volume. And especially if the quarterback is inefficient. I don't think it matters whether it's Heineke or Ridder. Quarterback play is just not going to be very good. You know, everyone who was claiming for Heineke, I think that ship has now sailed. We're fine saying we're just screwed, regardless of who the quarterback is. No one's going to be super enthusiastic. Chad's talking about the Unreal London catch. Yeah, that was a great catch by him. But
yeah, that was dope.
Yeah, it was a good catch by him. Great concentration through the catch point.
Wish
but
it counted
3
for
for 36
fantasy points, but it didn't.
Yeah, we need it, right? We need it. 3 for 36, not going to get it done. London, 3 for 30. I do want to see the breakdown in terms of routes to see if maybe Jonnu was less involved. I don't think so, but yeah, it was weird to see Kyle Pitts drastically out-target Jonnu. Feels like it's been weeks since we've seen anything like that happen.
Any other big takeaways from that one? Again, I don't know how long Heineke's going to be out. Looks like Ritter's back, so if you have Ridder, you got your starting quarterback for a little bit.
Yeah.
Should be enthusiastic about Bijan. Very excited about the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray and his pass catchers in particular. As good as Josh Dobbs was, there's a big difference between Kyler and everybody else. He's just awesome. He's an awesome, incredible player. Very unique talent, and that was a big win for the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm glad he got it done. It's interesting you see how much pressure is relieved from a win. Look at Devontae Adams after the game last night, smiling, jumping around, cheering, happy. I'm sure 15 targets doesn't hurt with that joy either. But let's talk about the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens game. Jay, this twice now, the Steelers game and this game, the Ravens lost these 2 games. The Ravens should be 9-1 on the season.
Remember the Indy game that they blew as well. That was a brutal loss.
Man, this is... First of all, this went way over the 38-point or 38.5-point projected total. And it was like these QBs were having a mid-off who could be the worst quarterback on the field between Watson and Lamar Jackson. Lamar, QBR 52.1. Deshaun Watson, QBR of 60. I think he played a little bit better than Lamar, in my opinion, and that's not saying much.
Yep.
Lamar, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions. Deshaun Watson, 4 sacks, 1 interception. It just... both of them were just out there just doing kind of whatever for the better part of that game. But the Cleveland Browns, 33-31, Jay, we asked, is Lamar going to have to do it on the ground or through the air? He probably should have done it on the ground a little bit more, but, 223, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, gave you 8 carries, 41 yards. The Ravens' rushing attack did little to nothing. Keaton Mitchell, outside that one big play, got 2 more touches, 2 more carries the rest of that game. He didn't do much for you. Gus Edwards, I said he was a must-start. You were very hesitant. He was not. He got 24 yards, and he scored a touchdown. On the other side of the ball, Jay, I think that the Browns have something in Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford, he looks good, Jay. Jerome Ford looks like he can play. Jerome Ford looks like he can play. 17 carries, 107 yards versus this defense. He caught 1 pass, didn't go anywhere. Kareem Hunt was also very good in the game as well. 10 carries, 32 yards. He did his role. Tough, hard, grinded out touchdown towards the end zone. But Jerome Ford really looks like he's got some promise too, and could be a nice little 1-2 punch if Nick Chubb can come back healthy next year.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of the matchup that I think I kind of poo-pooed on a little bit. You know, you were saying, got to start Jerome Ford.
Yeah.
He's just the bell cow running back. He's going to be the guy. And I was like, you know, this Ravens defense, though, is very talented. But he got it done and then some, right? This offensive line has been phenomenal, regardless of who the running back is, has created holes, especially late in games. You know, you talk about a team that can grind out wins. That's just what Cleveland does. You know, they struggled early, only 9 points in the first half. We're down 9-17. Then, you know, they start to kind of work their way back. Watson starts to play a little bit better, was very pinpoint accurate down the stretch. So when you look at what this Cleveland Browns offense is, I think the most encouraging sign for me was they obviously got rid of Donovan Peoples-Jones and consolidated the targets and opportunities. 17 carries for Jerome Ford, 10 for Kareem Hunt, 9 targets for Amari Cooper, 9 targets for David Njoku, and 7 targets for Elijah Moore, which amassed to pretty much all of the receiving production for that team. Everyone else hardly got targeted, whether it's Jerome Ford, Bryant, Jordan Akins, Cedric Tillman, very few targets outside of those guys, and that's great for fantasy football. Elijah Moore getting back involved, David Njoku being a heavily involved guy in the offense was something we all wanted to see because we know the talent's there. And I think the most encouraging sign was that Watson was pretty good down the stretch. You know, I think, you know, early on, you watch that game, you say, holy crap, like he looks terrible. And that was definitely true, but he really did get it together, put together a good performance, and did just enough leaning on that running game to get the win in Baltimore.
Yeah, Jay, and this is a good point here by our man Alex, right? Alex said 3 offensive linemen got hurt for Baltimore. It's concerning going forward and something to monitor in regards to their run game. And that's what seemed like was really hurting was their inability to run the ball. They could not get it. Outside that Keaton Mitchell run, they really couldn't get that ground game going. And when Baltimore can't run the ball, sort of it hurts everybody else, man. Mark Andrews did not, you know, we didn't talk about the bad, but you know, he was not good for us this week. If you started Mark Andrews, this did not work, Jay. And we talked about on Friday, I'm so glad I did not trade Trey McBride and Kenneth Walker for Mark Andrews. And it was a bunch of other stuff, but I was going to trade McBride, Walker, Pop Douglas, and somebody else for Andrews and Madison. Good Lord, that would have been a poo-poo stinker for me. Other side of the ball, Njoku was fine if you started him at tight end. 6 for 58. Yeah. He also clanked one off of his hands, would add another couple of yards had he not dropped that ball. Amari Cooper was very solid for us with almost 100 receiving yards. And Zay Flowers. It was nice to see Zay Flowers get back involved into the action. 73 yards, led the Ravens in receiving. And Odell Beckham Jr., as long as he gets his touchdown, you know he's happy. So he did score 1 catch, 40 yards, and a touchdown. Moving forward, this Ravens team, Jay, this is a good football team. It's just, you know, Lamar.
But do you believe in them?
It just went downhill quick, man. It went downhill quick for Baltimore. How you feeling about Watson coming out of this game? Do you feel a little better about Deshaun Watson, or are you still kind of like, I don't know?
I feel encouraged, right? A performance like this against a team like this is encouraging because we know that it's not easy to do, especially on the road. I talked about this past few weeks, how good Baltimore is at home, and they do play much better at home than they do on the road, especially offensively. But it is encouraging. I still don't feel like I've seen the old Watson, right? And maybe I'm just looking for something that's never going to be there. It seems like he does lack a little bit of confidence playing in this offense still. He's not just sitting back and ripping it. But he definitely was much better and good enough to where I would be confident that he's going to be okay moving forward. You know, there was concerns that there was still some potential downfall and some poorer play than we've seen in the past. So I'm definitely encouraged by what we've seen. If he can build off it, I think he will be just fine for fantasy, especially when you're looking at the cost that you're getting for Watson right now.
Yeah, it was a good win for Watson. They came back and they won in an AFC North game where they needed to have it. So good job for Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns, 6-3. I mean, if you're going to put the Ravens inside the top 5, then the Cleveland Browns should be a top 10 team in the power rankings as well. Jay, I'll be on Bleacher Report today, and I've got to do a top 10 power ranking show. And I very, 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 very much want to put this team inside the top 10. And my question to you, Jay, and my question to everybody out there right now, what quarterback in the AFC right now, right? I'm not talking future, not talking Hall of Fame. This 2023 season, what quarterback in the AFC is playing better than Houston Texans rookie CJ Stroud? Jay, who's playing better in the AFC than from top to bottom, what quarterback in the AFC is playing better football than CJ Stroud right now?
It's a very interesting discussion, and I think you are making some good points. You didn't make any points, but let's go down the list. Mahomes? Not really, if we're being honest. He's not playing very well. Josh Allen's playing
better
terrible.
Than Stroud right now? We know he's better than Stroud, but is he
He's not playing
better
better
than Stroud right now?
Nope. Joe Burrow clearly not playing better than Stroud. He just lost to Stroud. Lamar Jackson, don't think we need to go down that. We just went down there. Justin Herbert?
No.
He actually played pretty well last night.
Well.
Like they lost, but he made some big time throws in that game. But yeah, I mean, CJ Stroud probably playing a little bit better. Then, I mean, we can go further down the list. I think the question is, Ray, do you think he's playing better than Tua?
I think
Tua's
he's
been pretty
playing
good.
From top to bottom the best quarterback in the AFC. I think from top to bottom, he's been the best quarterback in the AFC this season through 10 weeks of the NFL year. Now, will it continue? Will it last? I don't know. But right now, they're in a quarterback that I think is playing better football from top to bottom than CJ Stroud right now, who is a man on a mission. They beat the Cincinnati Bengals, and we actually talked about this game. Potentially, is there a chance for Houston to win this game? And we kind of like half-assed dismissed it. 30-27, Houston Texans get it done. We said the 6.5 point total was a little too high.
Too many.
We were like, I don't know about that spread. And they did not cover, Jay. He was 23 for 39, 356, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He did lose 2 fumbles. So when you look at like the complete game, it wasn't his best performance. But if you watched it, I mean, dude, every throw. There was one, I believe it was a corner route to Tank Dell, and he's falling away, far hash, opposite sideline, just dart. And I'm like, my goodness, like this is it. Extending plays with his legs. It was a duel. It was an absolute heavyweight fight between those two quarterbacks. CJ Stroud, you know he likes to do his thing, the squabble. He came out squabbling and putting it to the Cincinnati Bengals, man. This Houston Texans team is legit, Jay. The Jacksonville Jaguars better watch out. This was a team that nobody thought would do anything. The Jacksonville better watch out. This team is for real, Jay. CJ Stroud, incredible, dog. He should get votes for MVP. He's not going to win it, but he should get a vote. I think the way that he's played this year, he's going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback and like one of the voted Pro Bowl quarterbacks.
Yeah, for sure.
Should be voted in Pro Bowl player. Man, what an awesome hit for the Houston Texans, man. To go through what they've been through the past couple of years, from the owner and McBride to Deshaun Watson to the draft and Lovie Smith. And think about it, man. Had they won that game and been picking 1 overall, who knows what they would have done, right? They kind of, who knows? You know, what if Houston picked number 1 and they took Bryce Young or something like that? So this is just he's playing out of his freaking mind.
I think we know how they'd look.
Man, it'd be crazy, man. He's playing out of his mind. No, Joe Burrow on the other side. He was good and bad. Like, he was good in the game. He kept him there, and then he had some bad throws, took some bad sacks. The QBR is low. He was good and bad. Tyler Boyd obviously dropped a game-winning touchdown, or would have been a game-winning touchdown pass in the end zone, and the Houston Texans went back down there and got it done. But, I think C.J. Stroud outplayed Joe Burrow mano-a-mano in this matchup, and it was a fun game to watch, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of hit the nail on the head, and you go back to Joe Burrow navigating in the pocket, rolling left, and throwing a bomb to Jamar Chase, and you're like, oh boy, we got ourselves a ball game now, because the Cincinnati Bengals are not going away. And you thought, how does Houston navigate this? How does CJ Stroud navigate it? And yeah, he did it against Baker Mayfield, but now he's got to do it again against Joe Burrow, right? Continue to make plays for his team down the stretch. And it seemed like every time they needed to play, he made it, right? And I think this is where, when you look at what makes Joe Burrow so great, so successful, rallying the troops, making the big plays in the big moments, this was, I think, the comparison that we made with CJ Stroud. And if everything hit and everything came together the way we wanted it to, he could play like a Joe Burrow. And I think he's just about there now. Like, I think he's just about there to where we can confidently say, like, this guy's going to be a great quarterback for the near future. And in that conversation with Herbert, with Burrow, you know, we talked about, is he better than Lamar right now? Would you take him over Lamar right now last week? And I wasn't really there yet. I was like, maybe I would take Lamar. But, another week goes by and I'm like, man, it's impossible not to love this kid. Like, impossible. He's just doing so much with what seems like so little. And he's been playing out of his mind. Out of his mind. So, great game from Stroud. Great game from everybody, honestly. But to see him outduel Burrow like that on the road, absolutely phenomenal performance from CJ Stroud.
Jamar Chase was dope. It took him a little bit to get going, but he finally popped off the 64-yarder, finishes with over 100 and a tutty. Joe Mixon, his day was saved by a touchdown. Other than that, he didn't do much of anything for us. Dalton Schultz was serviceable at tight end, 4 for 70. He hit all his props, so if you took his overs, you feel good about that. But the pass catchers, no Nico Collins, and it was all Noah Brown. Noah freaking Brown, Tank Dell. My goodness. These two, this is what happens, Jay, when you've got a truck at quarterback. When you've got a truck at quarterback, you could turn Noah Brown, who was a journeyman in Dallas. He had to work his way through special teams. So far on the season, he's got 21 catches, 439 yards, and a tutty. On the season, he's only played a couple of games.
Crazy.
Then you look at Tank Dell, who on the game didn't have as many yards, nearly as many yards as Noah Brown, 6 for 56, but he scored a touchdown. He had 14 damn targets in the game. Noah Brown, 8 targets, 7 for 172. He's their downfield threat. Jay, I would be very nervous if I was Jacksonville. This is a good team with an awesome quarterback, and these wide receivers are 100% getting it done. Noah Brown, man, I hope you got him off of waivers for free because he was free a couple of weeks ago. He is playing some damn good football, Jay. We got to pivot on to the Jacksonville Jaguars game versus the Brock Purdy-led San Francisco 49ers. We talked about this game on Friday. What Brock needed to do. What did Brock need to do? And if he failed, how would the fantasy and dynasty space treat old Brock Purdy today? Well, they're going to have to wait another week because he was awesome. He was very good in this game, Jay. Brock, 19 for 26, almost 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, QBR of an 88. He had CMC back. CMC did not score a touchdown. Oh, my gosh.
I know.
CMC, no touchdown. Minus 1,000 on the books to score. 19 for 95. He did catch 6 passes for 47 yards, so you were still good with his fantasy output. 10 targets on the game. Brock Purdy, man, I mean, the throw to George Kittle, he's standing in the pocket. I don't know how he makes the throw, Jay, but delivers a dime to George Kittle, 60-yard touchdown catch to Kittle. He had 3 grabs. One of them was a touchdown. Brandon Ayuk, 3 grabs. One of them was a touchdown. I think this is the thing with the San Francisco. It's going to be a low outside receiving volume type game, but Brock Purdy was efficient in this one. I don't think that the dynasty community can say much of anything about Purdy on the week, who should end up a top 10 quarterback on the week with this performance.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Purdy. Let me just quickly look. He was QB6, so just outside the top 5, and that's with virtually nothing on the ground, right? Because he didn't run at all, which is crazy. So to think 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers against this team. That we've been talking about Jacksonville as a team, especially on defense, that has been playing much better. But the Niners, I mean, both teams were on bye, so fair to them. There was some equal opportunity there. But the Niners, they rode the ship, right? They are. Would you say they're back, Ray? Would you go that far to say they're back?
I mean, they beat the brakes off of Jacksonville, and we pumped up Jacksonville as a top 5 team and how good their defense was, and they just steamrolled
2-3 at home for Jacksonville.
They absolutely steamrolled the Jaguars, man, who did not look good. Trevor Lawrence, Jay, QBR of 15 on the week. QBR of 15, 2 interceptions, 185 yards, 5 sacks. This was an embarrassing performance from the Jacksonville Jaguars. ETN gave you absolutely nothing. Christian Kirk, he caught 6 for 100, fumbled the ball, dropped some passes. Trevor Lawrence also fumbled the ball. This 2021 QB class, Jay, T-Law, Mac Jones, Trey Lance,
Zach Wilson,
Justin Fields, Zach Wilson.
They're all terrible.
It's smelly. I don't think T-Law's terrible, but
it's not good.
He's inconsistent. And people make excuses for him a lot. He's inconsistent. And what have I always said? The T-Law experience. He will give you weeks and flashes of brilliance and then other multiple stretches of just head-scratching WTF from Trevor Lawrence, who was awful, absolutely putrid in this game. It was terrible. Terrible job by the Jaguars. And your boy Calvin Ridley is just done. We talked about him versus Christian Kirk. Ridley.
We were on Kirk, though. To be fair to the people,
were on Kirk.
We did have that one.
Ridley,
Yeah, but Ridley
2
was
for
bad.
20.
He just. I don't know what they need to do to get him the ball, but they just don't get him the ball.
Maybe
anymore.
they don't need to get him
Maybe
the ball.
it's him.
Maybe
Yeah,
they don't
maybe
need
they
to get
don't.
him the ball. Maybe that's it. I don't.
Yeah.
All I know is that back end second round ADP and underdog in the summer is not bearing fruit for us whatsoever in fantasy. Jay, at 20, how old is Ridley? 28, 29 years old?
He's, I think, almost 30.
Yeah, he'll be 29 in December. Like, is this a guy
Yeah.
you really want to carry forward in Dynasty and build around Calvin Ridley?
Well, I think what's interesting, Ray, is that he is going to be a free agent. So he will have his pick of the litter. We'll see if he goes back to Jacksonville and if they re-sign him. I mean, the way he's playing, probably not. It's interesting, right? He's a guy that I'll be monitoring him in the offseason because I do believe in the talent, right? Like, it's kind of like Jerry Jeudy in that way. I view them both very similarly. Just obviously Judy's much younger. The talent is there. It's just, can they find themselves in the right situation? And I think that's the biggest problem with Ridley right now. Clearly, for better or worse, this is not the right situation. Everyone who bet on Christian Kirk is just doing fine, right? He's not smashing, but he's been doing fine week in and week out. Ridley's not getting it done. But I think that there may be a point where the pendulum swings a little bit too far for Ridley, and maybe I'd be considering buying. But yeah, right now the outlook for him looks pretty
I'm getting
bad.
some shade. Oh, Lily Crab said he is tough,
He's
though.
tough,
He-
though.
He's tough. He is. He does
Tough.
get up. He does battle. And Carlos said if Purdy would have played like Trevor Lawrence, they would have talked about benching him. It's the double standard in the
For sure.
NFL, man. It's the double standard in the NFL. Even when we did that whole clip about Mac Jones versus T-Law, it's, I'd still take T-Law leaps and bounds over Mac. Maybe, yeah, you would, but he is not played like the golden one, right? He has not played like the golden one, and he was awful in this game. He was awful in this one. The final game, Jay, that we need to get into and talk about. This
Big game.
What'd you say?
Big game, right? We had the over in this one, didn't we?
Big game, big names, big game. Let's get into it. The Detroit Lions and the Los Angeles Chargers gave us, can we say, a little bit of a show, a treat, some fantasy goodness, 41 to 38.
Shootout.
Jay. What a score. Points galore in this one.
SoFi did it again.
If you started anybody that had a name,
you're good.
You were pretty good. Outside of Sam Laporta, and you'll take 4 for 40. But if you started anybody in this game, you should be pretty good, Jay. Let's just start with the winning quarterback, Jared Goff. His connection with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Goff, 330 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks for Jared Goff. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 9 targets, 8 receptions, 156 yards. And the relief of him getting in the end zone, you could feel it permeating off of the screen. Amon-Ra St. Brown is backing up his status as one of the elite wide receivers in the NFL. We're very sort of waiting for him to assume that downfield kind of target earner. We knew he would command all the targets, but now he's getting downfield, and they're looking for him in the red zone. You know, he's a top 5 dynasty wide receiver, and he's paying significant dividends for us in fantasy football. And I'm just wondering why the hell the Lions haven't announced a Jared Goff extension yet. What are we waiting for?
Ray, if you're Jared Goff, do you want the extension announced now, or do you want to,
No, I
keep
wanna
stacking these wings, right?
I want to wait.
You
I want to
want
stack
you
the
want
wins if I'm Goff.
Can we
but I
make
don't know why
a
the
divisional
Lions haven't done
round?
it.
Can we make the championship game? Can we make the Super Bowl, right? And on the broadcast, they're saying, sky's the limit for this team because, offensively, is there a hotter name in coaching circles right now or should be than Ben Johnson?
Come on, Raiders.
The Lions,
Raiders. Get Ben Johnson. Well, I like Antonio Pierce. I like Antonio Pierce. I like Pierce.
See, I thought you were going the Antonio Pierce route to be the head coach long term, and I'm kind of with that. He's doing great stuff right now. But yeah, Ben Johnson, every single team should be calling. The fact they were able to retain him, great for the Lions. We'll see if they can retain him again. It seems so unlikely at this point. But what he's doing, what this team does week in and week out from a schematic standpoint, execution, their 4th down, what was it, 4th and 5? They ran it up the gut with David Montgomery and converted. Like, what are we doing? Talk about anti-analytics. It was just a great all-around performance from the Lions. Defensively, both defenses didn't really show up in this one, but we don't care. Tons of points, tons of action. But Amon-Ra, Gibbs, Montgomery, Goff, everybody you wanted to start and go off went off in this one.
Just go into it. AJ's pumping him up. Jahmyr Gibbs. He said Gibbs over Bijan. 14, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns for Jahmyr Gibbs. He also had 3 catches, 35 yards on 5 targets. Jay, is that a hot take to say Jahmyr Gibbs over Bijan in Dynasty?
Absolutely not, because offensive scheme matters, because team success matters, and you're seeing it play out. Yes, if Bijan was in this offense, could he produce similar, if not better numbers? I believe that, yeah. But the reality is that he's not in this offense. He's in the Atlanta offense, which is awful, and we don't like it, and it's not a great situation. And you have Gibbs in arguably one of the best offenses in football. Now, they don't have the highest end playmakers and talents across the board. I mean, they got Amon-Ra. Goff's been great. You know, Montgomery's a fine running back, and Gibbs obviously is a phenomenal talent, but no one's saying they're a top offense in football when you have teams like Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes and Philly. You know, they're just not viewed that way. But from a schematic standpoint and the way they utilize their players, they've got to be in the top 3. And you're seeing it week in and week out. And to see Jahmyr Gibbs out-carry David Montgomery in this game was everything we needed to know. We needed that confirmation that Gibbs will continue to be heavily involved in this offense with Montgomery back, because we hadn't seen that yet. I think we have it. I think we should be fine going forward. Happy to start both weeks. If you got, one or the other, I think you can start both. It's not going to be pretty, but I don't think you can bench them. They combined for almost 200 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. Yes, there was the big run by Montgomery, but I mean, both were phenomenal in this game.
Hey, that run was nasty, man. I mean, he absolutely broke old buddy down. I mean, as a safety, you ought to be embarrassed. I mean, he broke him down and then pulled away. And he probably stepped out of bounds, but you can't take that touchdown off the board. You can't take that touchdown.
You know what it was, right? Those feet of LaDainian Tomlinson showed up on that play.
Where's that graphic at? The vision of Walter Payton, the feet of LT, the quickness of LaDainian. Yeah. I mean, this is David Montgomery got it done for us. On the other side of the ball, Jay, Chargers lose. They fall to 4-5. Brandon Staley will undoubtedly take heat. But as Emmanuel Acho called him, the social media quarterback, if I referred to him a couple of years ago as the Blake Griffin of the NFL, Justin Herbert, I mean, he played really good. I think
good.
This was probably his best performance. He was making some throws yesterday. I was like, oh, shit. 323 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Awesome QBR of 83.6 on the day for Herbert. He also picked up 15 on the ground. Not much, but what he ended up doing was just absolutely feeding Keenan Allen, Jay. Just feed Keenan Allen. 11 for 175 and 2. And the dynasty community has been trying to kill Keenan Allen for like 4 years now. This guy's supposed to fall off. He's 31 years old. Trade him away. Back in 2019, they said trade him away. Keenan Allen's got 73 catches, 895 yards, 6 touchdowns on the season. Should go over 1,000 in week 11. He's on pace to have one of his best careers in the league at 31 years old, and he doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon, Jay. Keenan Allen, absolute monster on the week, man. What a dog. What a damn dog.
Yeah, I mean, Keenan Allen is a guy who's almost had 100 receptions since 2017. He's had 140 targets every year outside of last year when he was obviously injured. Almost 1,000 yards in every one of those seasons, 6+ touchdowns in all of those seasons as well, right? He already has 97 targets, nearly 900 yards, and 6 touchdowns in only 9 games. This guy is having a monster season. Like, it seems quiet because people aren't really talking about it.
People don't
They'd
talk
rather
about
talk about, A.J. Brown and Jamar Chase and when Justin Jefferson comes back. And part of it is the product of Mike Williams being hurt, but he has been phenomenal in his own right regardless, and he is just getting it done week in and week out. Keenan Allen is absolutely insane. He's been a guy who's been a favorite of mine for a very, very long time. I've always been a big fan of Keenan Allen. But yeah, back when he tore his ACL and he lacerated his kidney, they tried to call him injury prone, right? They tried to write him off, but Keenan Allen has been absolutely phenomenal for years and will continue to be. I think the question remains is like, how long can he keep this up? Because he will be turning 32, and can he continue to produce at this level?
He's playing. He's gonna keep it up for as long as he's playing. Like listen, he doesn't look old and slow to me. Adams looks fine. Diggs looks fine. They all look fine. Throw him the ball. 14 targets. That's all I need to know. QJ, Quentin Johnston scored a touchdown. Jay, QJ. Wrong one. I'm
bro.
So used to,
wow. That force of habit was rough.
Sounder. I wanted to give him an air horn. QJ did score 4 catches, 1 touchdown. He had a drop in
That
this
was cold.
game for
Smoked it. Classic
smoked
QJ.
it.
But there was a PI on that play, right?
It was
Wasn't
a
there?
PI on the play. It was
Yeah.
a PI on the play. Still should have
Little
caught
did Cam
it. But
Sutton
QJ,
know that he didn't
4
need
for
to actually
31,
hold him on
one
that play.
touchdown. If you had to start him out of desperation,
You good.
you're all right, man. He scored. You excited
Yeah,
about
it's just-
QJ moving forward?
I don't know about excited. It's encouraging though, because they do need somebody. I mean, Jalen Guyton also. The throw that
Guyton.
Herbert threw to him in the end zone, my goodness, between 2 defenders was phenomenal. But QJ, I think they have to figure it out with him because he was first round pick. He's the guy that they picked, right, to be that Mike Williams replacement down the line. Obviously, Williams got hurt. It was a little bit ahead of schedule, but I think they need to find ways to get him involved. I still think off the line, he really struggles, and you saw it if you were watching him more intently throughout the game. But outside of that, I think they can creatively get him the ball. I think his hands need to be a little bit better, and we all kind of knew that going in. But if they can find a way to make him a reliable option in the offense, Jalen Guyton obviously can be a reliable option as well. I think they'll be fine. It's just what is going on with this defense, because Brandon Staley is a defensive coach, and they can't allow 41 points to the Lions. Like, it's easy to blame Herbert, but there are games that happen like this all the time where he puts up 30 points and they lose. It's like, at that point, what do you want the guy to do?
Yeah, I mean, the defense, man, you can't give up 41. I mean,
No.
Lions just did whatever they wanted to do, man. They played great football yesterday, and they do look like one of the top teams in the league. I'm looking through the comments right now. Yeah, the QJ default drop. Yeah, that's my bad. I didn't mean to do QJ like that, man. Come on, Ray. I didn't mean to do him like that. Jay, but let me ask you this. When you're talking about your dynasty rosters and you're trying to make a push to win, Keenan Allen's going to help you win. Devontae Adams should help you win. But like, how inclined are you to invest in these older receivers, knowing that the moment the season ends, people aren't going to want him anymore? Nobody's going to want Keenan Allen, right? He's 32. Stephon Diggs is 30. Like, how inclined are you to even invest in those guys to try to push in and win this year?
I think it's a very small list of receivers, right? Where, we talk about guys that you're willing to kind of just let fall off a cliff on your roster. I think Devontae Adams is firmly in that list. Tyreek Hill isn't quite there yet, but he's a guy that, of course, would be on that list. Stephon Diggs, another one who I don't think is quite there yet, but is definitely on the list. Keenan Allen, absolutely on the list. Cooper Kupp, absolutely on the list. Guys that you want to trade for. But beyond that, I wouldn't say I'd get much deeper. Chris Godwin is a player that I love to death, but I don't know if I want him to be falling apart down the stretch on my roster. Mike Evans is maybe a guy that you could say, make the case that you want him down the stretch. It's kind of like a league winner type. He's an older guy. You have to be honest about your situation, right? Where are you headed? And if you believe that Keenan Allen can help you this year, I think the plus is that he can help you next year. And he may even help you the year beyond that. And you're really kind of just buying for the production now, which is going to be a little expensive based on his age and his relative dynasty value. But if he gives you anything the following year, it sort of is found money at that point. And if you wanted to flip him in season, you could probably get a similar return.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to watch those older veterans kind of push through the season and just keep smashing. Just keep smashing while you're fading.
Yep.
And give me
Cooper's
Drake
another one.
London over King. Who would you rather have, Drake London or Keenan Allen right now?
Keenan Allen.
Dynasty. This is Dynasty, Jay.
I'm fine with it.
Drake
I'm fine with
London
it.
or Keenan Allen? I mean,
I'm fine with it. That's what I mentioned. Keenan Allen's going to be. He's going to have Justin Herbert next year. He's going to be back.
and he's going to be on that team next year. So,
And I believe as well, Mike Williams, is he even under contract still?
yeah,
I know he's
Mike
got a
Williams,
short deal.
They're running it back with the same. It's going to be Josh Palmer, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams next year. So I'm kind of with you, man.
Damn,
We got a
no
couple
love
of
for
super
QJ.
chats we got to get to, Jay. I got a couple of super chats right here. Second worst thing in German history. Oh man. All right, Rory. All right. Appreciate the super chat. We got one here from David from memory. What do both of you believe to be your worst trade during the offseason? Anyone you bought or sold that has set you back badly? Oh, I know mine. I've got one. The absolute stone worst trade I made this year, and it really hadn't set me back because the team is good, but I traded. So I did a draft where I wanted all the rookie quarterbacks. Like I just, I play in 30-plus leagues.
class?
I want a league where I want all the rookie quarterbacks. So I ended up with C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Bryce Young. And what I wanted to do before the season was like, you know what? I'm going to tear down off of one of these rookie quarterbacks and get a whole bunch of other shit, and then I'll be able to win this best ball league. So I had to choose. You know I wasn't tearing down off of JRich. Like, I'm keeping JRich. So it was between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Guess which one I traded, Jay?
Yeah, you stuck with your boy, right? Bryce Young.
I traded old CJ, but guess who I traded him for? One of your boys out of the AFC North.
Not Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett and some fodder,
no.
man. Bro.
Oh my God, Ray, no.
And I thought I was so savvy. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get equal similar.
I'll get a first rounder.
Because Houston's so bad, and I just know that offense is going to be terrible. And I know that Matt Canada is going to turn it around in Pittsburgh with Kenny Pickett. Yeah, it was Kid.
That was preseason hype,
there was
man.
some other stuff in there, but the main ingredients of that dish were Kenny Pickett and CJ Stroud. Awful trade. Awful.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who I trade. I don't think I made any trades in the offseason. Only in season for me this year.
Yeah,
I did trade away a CJ anyway. For Burrow.
You are very inactive. Got another one here from Stanley. Shout out to our dog Stanley. Can Stroud win MVP? Yes, but not in 2023. He's not going to win it this year, but he can win an MVP. But I don't think he'll win it this year. Their team's not winning enough.
No.
He has got offensive rookie of the year. They've already got it engraved. It says CJ Stroud. It's already engraved. Offensive player of the year.
He's minus 1,600 to win right now.
Yeah, he can get it's Burrow. He could go down for the season and he's still going to win it. I mean, he's going to be voted in the Pro Bowl. He will win offensive rookie of the year. And he might get a vote or two, or at least an all-pro vote or two. But he is, I don't think he can win MVP this year. That's Hurts. That's going to be one of those guys. But he will win one, or at least
I do have one question.
To be the type of quarterback that can.
Can DeMeco? Am I frozen? Can
you're good.
Okay, good.
Can
DeMeco Ryans pass Dan Campbell for Coach of the Year this year? He is the second favorite right now. So Dan Campbell plus 150, DeMeco Ryans plus 300. That's an award that if CJ loses MVP, maybe we see DeMeco pass Dan Campbell.
Here's the path to Dan Campbell winning to DeMeco Ryans passing Dan Campbell. They got to win the AFC South. If they win the AFC South and maybe get another marquee win,
Campbell's going to win the North though. But he's going to win the NFC North.
But I'm saying that's the path. They've got to if DeMeco wants to get that, he's got to win the South. He's got to win the AFC South. Imagine how crazy that would be from going from a team that was destined to, they've royally screwed up trading.
Worst trade in NFL history.
Worst trade in NFL history.
We said that. Yep.
To a home playoff, hosting a home playoff game in 2024. That'd be quite the story.
Oh, could you imagine they're playing like the Dolphins or the Bills? Oh man, that'd be tough.
And here's the thing, man. What do we always say? When you've got a quarterback like a Joe Burrow, when you've got a truck, anything
covers
is possible,
everything up, right? Look at the Niners. They got Brock Purdy, just made that Trey Lance debacle just ride off into the sunset in Dallas.
Ride off into the sunset. And that is what we are going to do on this stream today. We appreciate everybody. 620 chat messages. My goodness. Most exciting coach this year round. What else we got? Is it possible Texans still play the Jags in Houston? Lions were the favorite to win the North, not the Texans. Great show. Thank you, Permafrost. Appreciate everybody being in the building. Stay tapped in. We got a lot of good stuff dropping this week. Trinity stuff is coming out on Thursday, but I'm going to do an early peek at the Trinity. I'll probably record that today. Yeah, drop that tomorrow. Just some of my takeaways before all the data, and we start to look at all of that. We got podcast, Destination Dynasty, dropped today. Scott taking a look at the 24 class inspired by Travis May. We've got college football content. We've got website content. Jay, I know we got articles going up. We got a lot of good stuff cooking at DD, man.
Yeah, Monday Night Football preview. I wrote that up over last night, so there is some good stuff.
Yes,
Big game from Dalton Kincaid incoming, hopefully.
Yes,
matchup is great for Kincaid today. Not so great for Stephon Diggs, so if you are counting on him, we'll see. Your boy, Josh Allen, can he put up a good game in primetime? Wouldn't say I'm sold yet, and I do think people need to understand, like, this Denver defense, so much better than it was to start the year. So much better. But that's it for me. My pod, Ray, will be returning this week because the Niners did get a big win. Straight to the bank. We'll be back. I'm going to be previewing playoff matchups. So I will be going over playoff schedules, talking about players you could maybe buy, sell, trade for, identify who have good schedules, bad schedules throughout the playoffs. So I will be taking a look at that on Friday to start your weekend. But Ray, is there anything else that we have to get to before we get out of here?
No, I think that's it, man. We appreciate everybody being here. Hit the thumbs up button, like the content. I know next week is Thanksgiving. We had a couple of people ask. We are still going to do the show next Monday, but next Friday, there will be no GQ on Friday of next week, nor Monday the following week. I am leaving for a week. I'm going on vacation for a week after Thanksgiving. All my family's coming in town, so I'm hosting them, smoking briskets. I'm smoking some oxtail tonight. So I'm gone. Me and the wife are gone for a week. So we'll do the show Friday. We'll do the show the following Monday. And then we're out for a week, unless JRich wakes up and does wake up by himself on Monday. But I will be in Mexico, and I will not be streaming at all. But we got a lot of dope stuff coming. Appreciate everybody being here. Y'all have a fantastic, fantastic freaking Monday. Enjoy the Monday Night Football game tonight. Jay's done the preview for it. Check all of that out. I'm filibustering until I find the outro. Found it. Have a good day, people. I'm out. Peace.